Some people might not be convinced about the whole law of attraction since it's mostly considered to be a spiritual matter. But if we were to approach it differently, like from a so-called logical, realistic standpoint, perspective, if we were to approach it that way, then it starts making sense even to skeptics, cynics. But also, well, if we try to look at it from this perspective, then even if you're spiritual, you might think differently. Believe that it makes even more sense than it already did. So let's think about this. For example, isn't this logical that if you assume that you're going to be able to achieve a certain goal, whatever that is, you might be considering that goal to be really big, really out there, out of your reach basically. Isn't it safe to assume that if you nevertheless expect that you can get that you really can achieve that, then you're way more likely to achieve that thing than if you were to approach it in a completely different way. If you're to approach it from the perspective of, I can do that, I don't think I can do that. If you say that to yourself, if you actually think that way, if you really believe that you can do that, perhaps you won't even try. Why would you try if you don't believe that you're even capable of achieving whatever that is? So see the difference? Just from the logical perspective, if you feel completely differently about this particular matter, then you're simply gonna take different actions. Or you might not even take the action that you would be normally taking if you had this positive approach instead, that yes, I can do this. Instead, you approach it with this no, I can't do this kind of attitude, and either way, you're right. You create your own reality. Even looking at this from this logical perspective, you can see how you create your own reality, because in one case, you will perform certain actions that will lead you to that success, and in the other case, you don't do anything, or you just take the wrong action because you don't believe that you're capable of doing this, achieving this. So doesn't it make sense, even if you're spiritual, to look at this from this so-called logical perspective, which, by the way, well, it's a subjective matter anyway. For one person, what is logical, realistic is not exactly that to the other person. But anyway, even if you're being spiritual and you're still looking at this whole thing from a spiritual perspective, it's probably still helpful if you think this way about this, the very realistic way. What else can I say on the matter? What other example we can find? Well, how about, let's say there's a certain person that you have a crush on. You might have an approach to this that, well, she's gonna like me. I could totally be her type. We could really get along. Maybe we're gonna have certain things in common in terms of personality or hobbies and whatnot. Or I could look at this from a completely different perspective. Well, I'm not her type. I could never be with someone this attractive, and so on and so forth. So, once again, guess who's gonna win in this case? Which kind of personality is the winner? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? Of course, you might still say, well, that doesn't mean I will achieve that, but then again, if you think that way, you're just going back to this personality that doesn't achieve anything because, well, you just expect that you're not capable of getting that person. And you're right. Just like you expect that, yeah, you probably have things in common with that person. You could totally be her type. And so on and so forth. Just the same way, you're a winner in this case. Because, well, you assume you're gonna have things in common. You assume she's gonna like you. And you're right, just as well, you're right. I remember back when I was in like mid school, and even though that whole thing didn't end the way I wanted, nevertheless, I didn't even know about law of attraction at that point yet. But I kept visualizing just for fun, just for the sake of feeling good. I kept visualizing that one girl regularly in romantic situations. And I could notice how she's literally changing to that idea of her that I had in my head. It's like I'm literally shaping the reality. And she actually really started to act this way as I pictured in my head. I could see more and more that she really was into me, even though at the time I wouldn't really be confident. I wouldn't actually think that I could be with someone who I considered so attractive. I didn't think of myself as an attractive guy at that time. I didn't think that. But nevertheless, I kept visualizing. So I guess on some level, if I kept visualizing that, then I must have believed that I'm capable of getting her. Well, the thing anyway didn't end well, but I also realized the reason why it didn't go well was because before I asked her out, I was extremely stressed, and all of a sudden I lost any belief that I had that I could possibly win this whole situation. So in the end, that didn't work out. You gotta remember, it does matter. Your perspective matters. And at the end of this, I wavered. So I lost. We win and we lose. Just because you lose sometimes, well, that doesn't mean that you have to give up also. So once again, look at this from a realistic standpoint. If you approach a situation with a certainty that you're gonna get that, then you're just gonna get that. Another example would be, I got a job, and after the interview, I was like, I don't really care if I get this job or not. I was careless, really. But also, I said to myself, I'm absolutely certain they can pick me, because, in my opinion, that interview went really well. In my favor, I figured. So even if it wasn't maybe, even if somebody wouldn't say that looking from a different perspective, then I nevertheless said to myself, and I did believe that yeah, I think the interview went really well. Somebody who looked at the situation from the side could say, well, that didn't go well at all, and I'm just talking shit. But who cares? Well, that was what I believed, and that's what I got. So again, I had this realistic approach. I can get it just like that, no problem. We don't have some things we approach carelessly because we don't really care that much about them anyway. So that was one of those cases for me. But you eventually get to a certain point in your head that actually you approach everything the same way. That's the goal, getting to that point. We can all get to that point. You just eventually start letting go of anything, whatever that is, even the things that you would normally consider really important to you. That it really matters that you get this or that thing. You get the money, you get the love, you get the health, all kinds of things, whatever that will be. But eventually you get so careless that you don't care anyway. And that's another important component, by the way. Also makes sense realistically, if we were to look from a realistic standpoint. Also makes sense that if we let go, that if we really don't care about getting something or not getting it, that we're fine either way. Also makes sense then that we're just gonna carry ourselves completely differently. So when it's like a job interview, you go there, you don't care about the results. Obviously, you're gonna be relaxed. They're gonna be able to tell, people themselves who talk to you, they're gonna be able to tell, well, this guy is pretty relaxed, he's pretty calm, you know, he seems pretty chill. Maybe we should pick him. And instead, you go as this guy who really cares so much about getting this job, and he's so needy to get it. He really wants it. You think they can't tell? You think they can't tell that you're really stressed about it, that you really care to get that job. It shows in your body, your whole body is getting tense, and everybody can see that. It doesn't take a psychologist, it takes a normal human being. They can tell you're not being calm, you're not being confident, you're being stressed about the whole situation. And how are they going then to approach you in that situation? Well, they're probably not going to be really interested in picking you as their new worker. They're going to pick someone who's just more chill, laid back, doesn't really care. So they picked me. That's how they picked me. I didn't care. And there were like 10 other people who wanted the same position. Guess who got it? It was me. I didn't care. They must have cared too much, and it showed. It could be seen that they were trying too hard, they were being too needy. So that's the whole realistic approach to the thing, and I hope that it makes even more sense to you as we approach this whole beautiful law that is so important to understand. Hope it makes sense to you if we approach it from this realistic standpoint, even more so than we only approached it before with the spiritual, approached it from the spiritual side. So anyway, good luck on your new journey.